Hello, this is John Jughead Pearson from the almighty All Night Garage Sale, and you are watching Crash and Bleed.
I am alive, I am here, I am now, I acknowledge the fact of
So, John,
Yes.
you were a key member of Screeching Weasel for 20 years. You've also not been a member of Screeching Weasel for roughly 20 years, but does it ever amaze you that people still want to reach out to you to talk about your time with Screeching Weasel?
Uh, no. I mean, it doesn't amaze me anymore. I mean, it's been a long enough time where the notoriety and semi-fame has lived past the end of the band. So I would say maybe 10 years ago, I might have been still amazed by it, but now it's kind of old hat.
Well, today I mostly wanted to talk to you about the Emo album. I know that's the least well received of all the albums. Like, My Brain Hurts is obviously the best Screeching Weasel album. Emo's the one that I see everyone say, screw that album, it's not very good.
Hmm.
But I often find myself going back to it and thinking, this is actually pretty good, but I never remember that I like it. You know what I mean? It kind of starts off like a classic Screeching Weasel album with Ben like, I am alive, I am here. You think,
Yeah.
I know this band. This is like classic Screeching Weasel, but then it does get a little bit weird for people. It gets a little bit rough for people. But if it's okay with you, I'd like to spend most of our time talking about the making of that album.
Well, I just gotta say it would have been nice to know that because I don't do any of the writing on that one, and that was when the band was starting to break. I was really starting to not be around together, so I don't have a lot of insight except for the actual studio time.
That's what we're interested in.
Okay,
That's what we'd like to know about.
okay.
But going back to the all-night garage sale days, did you guys maybe feel that you came late to the hardcore scene and that contributed to you guys sort of developing your own sound inspired by the hardcore movement?
No, because remember then, I mean, punk in the mainstream didn't even exist. Wasn't on the radio, wasn't on TV, wasn't like sitcom references to it yet, really. So um I think for most kids my age and then even like a little bit older and younger, it was like it was brand new. I mean, it wasn't like we had heard about it when we were young and our older brothers and sisters listened to it. No one listened to it before us in our area. So no, I don't think we felt like we came late at all, really.
Well, was that a discussion that the band had? Like, let's not be a classic hardcore band. Let's not completely rip off like classic punk rock. Let's just develop our own sort of sound and then.
It was No, it wasn't a discussion. It was Ben brought in the song "Love" from Boogada Boogada, and I loved it. The song, Vinny, who was more hardcore and metal, who went on to be in Impulse Manslaughter, hated it. But we didn't really discuss it. I mean, it had always been sort of a goal to bring in more melodic stuff anyway. I just don't think Ben was very comfortable with writing it before then. He was writing stuff like "I Hate Old Folks" and "Cows" and stuff like that. I don't think he really quite learned how to write, you know, a, a bridge, chorus, and verse as well yet. But I think it always been an intention. I don't think we actually said, "Let's make that move." It only became apparent in watching Vinny's reaction to it, I think.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that I really do love that first album. How do you feel about it now, all these years later, looking back?
Oh, I don't listen to it, but I really like it. I think it's really goofy and fun, and definitely shows our abilities as players, and also just that we just did whatever the hell we want. The songs are like all over the place. And I was still playing a little bit more with being like a soloist type stuff. So you have a little bit more like medley, interesting stuff on there. I think it's a fun record. I'm not like Ben where I don't like looking back at that stuff. I actually I enjoy the nostalgia of those old records.
Yeah, and I think that first Weasel album is actually better than the first NoFX album. And you guys put yours out first as well.
Well, thank you. What is the first NoFX? Like I don't know.
That's Liberal Animation.
Yeah.
It's very much like acid rock meets hardcore. They failed terribly at being RKL. It's just awful.
I'm not a big fan of NoFX, so I don't really know their stuff. But we always seem to be on the same tour circuit, like back in the like 88 and 89 or 91 or whatever that was. But we never played with them. We were always like either in front of them or behind them.
Well, you guys came out of the suburbs of Chicago. What influential Chicago bands just automatically come to mind for you?
Well, Naked Ray Gun, of course, that's the big one. We used to go into the city to the Cabaret Metro to go see them play. There's the Effigies was another big one too. They were all sort of in the same group. Really, they were known as like blue collar industrial working punk bands. But that was about it really for me. There's a lot of people talk about Articles of Faith.
Yeah.
And other bands like that, but for us it was just Naked Ray Gun.
Well, I ask all my musical guests this question. Who would you say was the most iconic punk rocker of all time? Somebody that just embodied everything about what punk rock should be to you?
Not even that, just you mean of all time or just back then?
Of all time.
I would probably say it would probably not be a punk. So but I don't know who that would be right now. Let me think on that when you ask other questions. I don't really have someone that's iconic for me for that. I mean, the stereotypical one I would say is Johnny Rotten. I just think he's even more so when he started doing stuff after Sex Pistols. I thought he really sort of showed his punk side by doing stuff that pissed off the punks. I kind of admired that. So, with PIL, Public Image Limited, and stuff like that. I still to this day, still pissing people off all the time.
Well, so is that kind of what drew you to Ben originally? Because Ben has a similar sort of ideology with pissing off punk rockers.
No, he didn't really have that then. I mean, I grew up in high school with him. We weren't really close, but we had a similar situation. Like he was getting in trouble a lot after school, so his parents made him take these extracurricular activities. And my case was that we were poor and didn't have anything at home to go to, so I would do these extracurricular activities. So we would end up being in wrestling together, and then or do these weekend retreats to like camping and stuff. So it was more like it just became situational, where we became close. And then we ended up working together at the movie theater, and that kind of cemented that. We both wanted to be in bands.
Did you bond over favorite movies?
No, we didn't really even talk about movies. No, I don't even think he even cared really about movies. He just wanted a job. Yeah, I don't even remember what period it was when he was there. So I don't even remember what movies were out there then. But we didn't like go to movies or anything like that together. It was mostly music and TV. We watched, a lot of TV together, Brady Bunch, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I think that Murder in the Brady House song is the golden track from that first album.
Yeah. I mean, even then we were still trying to imitate AOD, basically. They have songs like that about TV and things like that. So TV Party from from Black Flag. But no, that one really seemed to catch on. It was probably that and Love were our first like really melodic songs. That also was influenced by Mr. T Experience too, I think, because they had Danny Bonaducci, the song. So from where's it, Partridge Family. Let me say, I found a personal one. Chris Barrows is probably the personal punk hero of mine from Pink Lincolns. When I met him, he seemed like a real punk, like just genuinely loved punk music. would go to all the shows. Really cool guy, and incredible to watch on stage. Very friendly. Still one of my good friends today, but he's one of the unsung heroes of punk rock, I think.
Okay, so moving on to the Boogada 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 record. That first song, Dingbat, I'm getting heavy Bad Religion vocal melody vibes. Like, was that at all inspired by Suffer?
No, I don't think so at all. No, no. Dingbat is the word is taken from All in the Family. You know, Archie Bunker. He used to call his wife Dingbat, and then it was based on this Vinny's girlfriend at the time, who was we called her an Insta punk because she would just put her hair up on the weekends. So.
Well, what do you think draws us to fast music? Why is it so exciting for us? What's going on in our brains when we hear that?
It starts in youth, I think. I mean, even way back, if you think about like swing music, it started getting faster and faster with Benny Goodman and all that. You know, it seems to go through all genres of music, where the kids sort of speed it up, you know, to be more energetic, to be more rebellious. I think it's kind of I just think it's a natural thing that people go through, that where they just want to kick up the energy on something.
As I've already said, My Brain Hurts is my all-time favourite Screeching Weasel album. It's got all the best tracks. It's like unstoppably, undeniably great. My favourite song is Don't Turn Out the Lights. It's that fucking line. I try to tell you that I'm scared, you act like you don't even care. You just pat me on the head and walk away. I'm like, I have cried in my youth listening to that song because that's like my childhood. Was that like an intentional thing that Ben did? Was he trying to write something that would touch people, or was it just fucking around? This is just a punk song, throwaway track. Does it matter?
I don't think he would. He became really. I don't think by then. I don't think he ever just wrote something off and threw it away. He had books and books of notes on songs and would work on stuff endlessly, even if it sounded stupid and juvenile, like farting in a puddle. He really thought a lot about those songs. I don't know specifically remember what that one was about, whether it was some TV show we were watching or some memory he had of, you know, being afraid of the dark. But I don't think he was trying to like manipulate the audience in any way. I think it was more just what he was thinking at the time. But I can't get into like lyrically what he was doing. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, who came up with that badass guitar riff in that song?
We both did. He came up with a basic part of it, and then when I changed where it was played, it kind of altered the sound of it. Like he was doing it way up on the neck on the like E string, and I took it to like the top of so that I could do some of the open string work on it. So it kind of has a weird, not like our other solo sort of feel to it, because it has those open notes that sort of ring out. So I would say it stemmed with his initial idea, and then I added to it.
Well, you did this really great thing on your YouTube channel where you went through every album and gave it almost an hour's worth of, you know, insight, notes, reaching out to band members, producers to get their thoughts on it. But by the time we get to Emo, there's not that much on it for the obvious reasons that you talked about. And we'll get into that in a moment. But one thing that you didn't really touch on when you went through all those albums was why the band decided to slow down for Wiggle. Like, was that a conscious decision that the band had to make? Let's slow down, let's be more like the Ramones, something along those lines?
Well, I would say the environment of what was going on was the hardcore scene was sort of dying out and becoming something different. And I don't know. I don't think we thought about it too much. I think Ben was just letting his Ramones influence come in more than we had before. And like I said, I think he just became more confident with his writing, and it lent itself to taking more risks and being more vulnerable and doing something a little slower and more with harmonies and stuff like that. And adding Vapid to the band sort of kicked that up too, because the two of them would just sit together and write harmonies and melodies all the time. And they just sound better when they're a little slower, I think.
Well, did you guys get any backlash at the time, like from the fans? Because naturally, when you slow down, sometimes you lose a couple of people along the way. You know, they say the new album's not that good; it's slow. I don't think that is the case with Wiggle. I think it is a good album.
Yeah, I think it has. I think Wiggle has more variation. Vapid was me and Vapid were listening to a lot more Cheap Trick then too. So we used to do a Cheap Trick cover, and I think that sort of bled into it. And Ben would basically come in, show us a song, and then leave. And Johnny Personality, me and Vapid and Panic just loved playing together, so we would just keep working. So I think it lent itself to having more speeds because we were just playing a lot more together, you know. So we were able to fill that empty space with more interesting things, I think.
Well,
But I don't, I mean, Ben was getting way more introspective, and there's that pressure of even though it wasn't our second record, it kind of was because no one knew who we were until Brain Hurt. So it was kind of that second record syndrome too of really overthinking a record.
Well, there's quite a couple of bonus tracks on one of the reissues of the album. I think one of the songs is Danny.
Teenage Slumber Party is on one of those.
That's one, and there's another one called Danny is a Wimp.
Yeah,
maybe?
Danny's a Wimp. Those were the Steve Albini sessions with Danny's a Wimp, and then the Aaron Comet Bus and Ben song, which is one of my favorite. I can't remember the name of it right now, but do I even have it here? I'm cheating. I have the wiki open, but
oh, that's okay.
yeah. I know what you're talking about. What's the question about that?
Yeah. So were they actually written for Wiggle, or did they come a little bit before or after the album?
They weren't. Going Home was the other one. So by lyrics by Aaron Comet Bus from Crimpshine at the time. The Teenage Slumber Party was actually from Achtung Chicago from '89, so that was way earlier. I like that one because I wrote that solo for that one. I originally wrote it on a mandolin, and then and I think that's kind of also helped kicked us off doing these melodic solos. Was Teenage Slumber Party, and the other two were were they released on something? I don't even know. Oh yeah, it was released on an EP with Pink Lincoln's Going Home was. So it was just trying to get those onto. Once we signed a Lookout, it was just trying to get those songs more distributed.
All right. Okay. So I should say that I was more of like a casual fan in the 90s, just from like mixtapes, hearing certain songs, and I kind of deep dove into the band by the early 2000s. I didn't think that I would ever complete a vinyl collection by you guys because there's so many one-off records that you're just never going to own. And so I genuinely don't know about some of those records. I did talk to Warren Ozfish, who was selling one of the two pressings of... I think it's a split you guys did with the Ozfish. And
Yeah.
maybe there's a story there about a factory burning down or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But he was selling one of the two test pressings of that record. £24,000 it cost. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was the one who had the other one, and I sold mine for like $3,000 because my air conditioning was my heater was cut off in the winter, the gas, so I needed the money. But he's kind of joking with that. He doesn't want to give his up, but so he just decided to put a big number on it to see if anybody actually would. At the end of the day, I don't know if he might for that amount of money, but I don't even know if he would give it up at that point. But yeah, we only had the two copies. We had hundreds of copies of the cover because it was just, Kinko's sort of copies. But we only had two test pressings of that.
So that's a collector's item that nobody's ever going to be able to get.
Yeah, and that was prior to Boogada, because it had "I Hate Led Zeppelin" on it and a couple other songs that are not on anything else. So I think that must have been right before Boogada. So
Yeah. But just before we get out of those early years, looking back, what are you most proud of from that time?
I think we didn't know, you know, there wasn't really any way to become known without playing some sort of game or like trying to like turning down a record label, Walk Through Fire, that a lot of the other punk bands were signing to. I think was a big move for us because it cemented that we were going to have to do it ourselves because we didn't like playing the game of these sleazy guys that seemed to be trying to like take the little bit of popularity that punk had and try to capitalize on it. And we chose not to play that game. So I think that was kind of one of our proud moments, I think, is when we said no to them.
1, 2, 3, I want it up.
Well, I think some people might have an issue with us just skipping over Anthem and How to Make Enemies because you guys actually have Mike from Green Day playing bass on that album. You're leaning more and more into that pop punk territory with those last two albums there. Are there any fond memories from this time? Because I know the band sort of started to fall to pieces a little bit.
I think that's my least favorite record out of all of them. We didn't really have much to do with it in regards to like Panic Me. It was rehearsed in my basement, but then recorded in Dan Panic's basement next door. But him and I were both in school at the time, so it's probably the one record where I wasn't there all the time for recording. I would take Mike around to get bass strings and stuff like that, and we go to dinner and things like that. But it's probably my least, the one I worked the least on, and my least favorite record.
We skipped over Anthem a little bit there too, and I didn't really want to talk about Anthem that much because Anthem's actually my least favourite album.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk in the past on like other podcasts and in one of your own YouTube videos. You talked about how this was kind of the beginning of the end for you guys, that it was becoming more of Ben's project and less of a cooperation between the band. So is that really what started everything off on the wrong direction? Was Ben becoming unbearable by this point?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't about being unbearable. Really, it was just about let's see, where I don't remember where he was living. Did he move out? He may have moved farther away, maybe. I know him and Vapid lived together in the city on Belmont, but I think that was earlier. I think it wasn't about his attitude. It was just about he became more of a isolated, creative person, and didn't really need our input as much. He was even saying no to a lot of Vapid's ideas too. He just didn't. Vapid used to talk about how he didn't feel like he had anything to do with that record. He loves that record. He says how much he loves it, but he didn't have barely anything to do with it, and it just didn't feel like it was a band anymore. I just think Ben was probably in a place where he was experimenting with his own sort of very specific ideas about what he wanted to do, and wasn't able to include other people in that sort of process, I think.
But somehow that must come across in the recording because it just feels so bland to me. And if I push myself to like it, maybe I like 4 songs. But I think the best one is that 12-second song, that quick little fast one. You know the one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because a lot of people's that's one of their favorites. But I have the same reaction to you as you have on it too. I think like I love. Wait, Every Night is from that. Yeah, Every Night is on there, right?
Yeah, I think so.
But that's from a different session, actually, too. Every Night and Totally are my 2 favorites on that, and they're from different sessions. They weren't even recorded at that session.
Oh, okay.
So that might have something to do with it. The other thing I just remember, too, is that we experimented with writing all the songs before we went on tour, and on tour, we only played new songs. It was kind of a shocker to the audiences. I mean, our small 100 people or 50 people audiences that we were just playing songs they didn't know. So we came back knowing those really well. Actually, we all got sick and we canceled the first recording because we were all like sneezing and throwing up at the in massive studio. So we all went home and then came back a little while later. But that might have led to it too being a little bit too sterile. Like we knew exactly what we were going to do. It was really stripped down, not as much like melodic solos on that one. It was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So I think
Well,
we were battling with both those things. Ben's sort of attitude towards creativity and us having maybe over rehearsed it for simple songs.
so how did that work with the band dynamics when Mike from Green Day came in? I mean, it's not like he was an official member of the band. I think he was just a fill-in. But how did that?
Yeah, we weren't even Ben and I had already discussed not being a band anymore, so we weren't even considering continuing on. We just wanted to get those songs finished. And then we stopped playing for a while. That's when he started Riverdale's, if I'm not mistaken. I think came in around then. Yeah. So we weren't even, no, Mike was never going to be in the band. He was just, they were doing really well. And it was kind of like, hey, let's get this guy who's doing really well that loves the band to do these parts for us. That's about it, really.
Was it just like a one take for him, or did he have to screw around a little bit? Was there any like creative discussion between him and Ben?
I would say limited, but yes. Like he came in knowing the songs. We sent him demos. And he added his own little touches to it because he plays different than Vapid, you know. And I remember a couple of rehearsals watching them talk about how to play something, but not extensive. Like it was pretty straightforward on that. And he came in, I don't even know, it was less than a week. It wasn't very long because then he had the Woodstock show to go to because he left us and went straight to Woodstock.
So, does it ever blow your mind then when you look back and think, holy shit, Mike from Green Day played on this record?
No, because I mean, I know Mike, you know, we did shows with them when they were, you know, a little band in a little stoned band in like a minivan. So yeah. No, it was more kind of when I saw them wearing the Weasel shirt at that Woodstock show. That was like going on like, oh, that's cool. But I'm not a big fan of Green Day, so it's not a big deal to me, really.
Neither am I. I actually don't like Green Day. I think like they had a couple of great songs like in the early days, but I don't get that they're the biggest band in the world. Like I just don't get that. And I think
no, I would not take away their talent. Like Billy Joe is definitely an amazing singer and songwriter, but it doesn't hit me like a lot of other bands do. Like it's not punk enough to be punk, and it's not rock and roll enough to be rock for me. So I don't know what it is.
But do you think that him being on that album elevated it in any way? Like, what were the record sales like at that time?
I don't think it did at all. I think people always assumed we were doing better than we were. I mean, our biggest selling album back then, and even now, is still Boogada, probably. And that started before Mike. I don't really know if it helped much. I mean, it's not one of those that's easy to tell by sales. But I do hear people say that, you know, in high school they heard Green Day and then they dug in deeper and then they found bands like The Queers and Screeching Weasel. So I can't discount it. But there wasn't any direct, like them being on Woodstock with wearing our shirt didn't like increase anything for us.
Yeah. I can imagine that's the same with Fat Mike as well, who guest vocaled on the Anthem album.
Oh yeah, I mean, they were about the same level we were back then, so it wasn't that big of a thing. They just toured a lot more, so they were, you know, more in the face of the public, but they weren't any much bigger than we were then. So it was just like having a friend on the record. Anthem was also, I just realized Anthem was also remixed in California. Ben flew out and that's where you get that radio soundtrack from the beginning of Every Night, and that's how he got Fat Mike on the record. Originally, I think that was Vapid doing that part, I think, or maybe it was just Ben doing it. But that was another thing that sort of distanced us on that record too. I think we weren't really around for the mixing of it.
Was there any talk at that time of Weasel joining Fat?
No. Not until after our relationship with Lookout kind of exploded, which was right in between there. Or it was right after Riverdale's. Yeah, Riverdale's and Lookout got kind of ugly, their relationship.
Yeah. So it's Bark Like a Dog that followed the Enemies album, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah, and then there's what was it, 2 years? Yeah, that's what I'm looking at now. 2 years difference. We broke up. They started Riverdale's, and then we got back together again.
Now, was that because of Fat? Did they just
I think,
took a load of money at the idea?
No, because we originally we're going to do it with. We already had recorded it, and we're going to do it with Lookout. But we flew out to have a meeting with Larry, and it just fell apart. We were asking for stuff that they weren't willing to do. It wasn't like more money. It was more about. I don't want to get into the contract stuff, but he had a 60-40 split. The band would get 60, but not really, because they took the office cost off the top. So the band really wasn't getting 60-40. We were getting more like some other percentage. So we just wanted a more clear percentage break, and they refused. So Fat Mike offered what we were looking for. So him and Ben worked it out. But we had already recorded it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, so would you agree that the Emo album was the least well received of all the albums?
Probably, sound quality wise. I think less people know Teen Punks and Heat. Maybe people might even know Emo more because they don't like it more than Teen Punks and Heat. So Teen Punks and Heat is probably our least known record, I think. But Emo might be the one that people don't like as much. I think it's the recording.
That's a point to make as well, because for me, it sounds a little bit too much like a demo, like something that should have come before Bark Like a Dog. What was the reason for that change in sound? Because Bark Like a Dog's very poppy. It's got that Cool Kids song on it. That's the song that everybody heard in the 90s from all the mixtapes. But this one's a lot grittier, a lot grimier, which is on purpose, obviously, with a more garage rock feel about it.
Yeah, I think that's what it was about, really, is that... I do this too with more in my play work and stuff like that. And you kind of test the boundaries of things. We tested the boundary of being really specific and precision with Bark Like a Dog. Went to the most famous Chicago studio to have it, mastered and stuff like that. And I think he just kind of, and he was dealing with a breakup at the time with his wife. I think that was right around then. So the songs where he was writing were more raw. So it just made sense to go in the opposite direction of it being more of a raw recording and abandoning all of that precision that seems sterile in some ways. But we went too far, I think. I enjoyed it. I had a great time. Mass, Giorgini, and Lumley hated it because they love precision and being perfect, and we didn't allow them to do that. So they were kind of uncomfortable, but I loved it. I had a lot of fun. I came up with some of the best stuff in the studio that I think I've come up with in years.
So I had this theory that I was letting swim around in my head for the past couple of years. I thought that because of Fat Mike, once Bark Like a Dog came out, Fat Mike said to Ben that he thought that you guys would make a fast album to be more in keeping with that Fat Records sound at the time. Is that kind of why Television City Dream sped up a little bit? Was that kind of like a forced thing by Ben or by you guys?
No, I don't. Well, there was major label debut before that, and we started playing with the speed with that too. It was definitely affected by the Fat Records label. Like we had Lumley specifically do sort of Fat Records drum sounds. But I also think that was just one of those reactions, like I said before, where Ben would just go back and forth, like fast, slow, clean, precision to messy. It was kind of like I don't know, keeping yourself in check, and sort of playing with those. Even in his politics and stuff, he likes playing with the extremes. It's just kind of his personality. So it just came out in the music. I don't. I mean, I guess him and Mike were pretty chummy then, so there probably was. Mike definitely did not tell us that we had to do that. There was no talk like that. I think Ben was just being influenced by that, and Lumley was such a great fast drummer that we could do that, And we had gotten better as musicians too, so.
Well, so what I was getting at here is the way that I justified the sound of emo when I was deep diving into the band back in the early 2000s is I told myself that emo was the record that Ben wanted to make instead of Television City Dream. So when you guys left Fat, that natural change in sound came out. Is there any truth in that, aside from what we've just talked about?
No, I think he loved those songs on Television City Dream. I think it's basically the relationship exploding, and with Television City Dream, he wasn't never there, so he wasn't even really a part of the making of that record. Ben, he gave us the songs, the demos, and then we went off to Massa Studio. He stayed in Chicago, so he wasn't even there for most of it. And then they built a little studio for him to do vocals. Like Mass drove out from Indiana to Chicago to do vocals for him. I think he just didn't like being in the studio a long time, and just wanted, if he was going to do emo, was going to be emotional, he wanted to do it fast, like go in the studio, get it done, and get out. Because he had too much anxiety about being in the studio. So.
Was that like a severe mental health issue at the time for him?
Yeah, he had been going to therapy and stuff like that too. Yeah, I mean that's pretty common knowledge that he was dealing with that. Yeah.
I don't think I actually did know that. Like I was doing my research on you, and I was digging deep through like previous podcasts that you'd done, and I was like, I wonder if that did affect Ben, because I'd heard you mention it, but I actually don't like dig deep into bands like that. I don't follow like people's personal shit, so I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about it a lot, but he went through different sort of therapeutic, like he's very intellectual, so he went through the cognitive sort of treatment of trying to analyze a situation. He tried like Zen Buddhism and all these different things to try to deal with his anxiety. I don't know what he's doing these days, but sometimes it was medication, which he didn't like, and that's why we didn't play out too much, because he had to be medicated and he hated that. So I think, yeah, getting in and out of the studio quick was one of the reasons. Also, like I said, the music was very visceral and emotional, so it made sense to do it that way.
Go.
Are there any standout tracks for you from Television City Dream? Because I know you've talked in the past about how you're not that fond of the album.
Yeah.
But do you like any of these tracks?
Television City Dream, I think Speed of Mutation is probably one of the. Let me look at it quickly. I think I think Speed of Mutation is probably one of our best songs from that time period. And The First Day of Winter, I think, is pretty great too. Those are the. Burn It Down, we had for years and years. He just couldn't get it to how he wanted it. And I still don't think it's right on that record, but that one's okay.
Yeah. All right, let me just stop.
But
that.
we were, just to clarify, we were just talking about emo when I was talking about the visceral and the quick and stuff like that, just because we're bouncing between television and emo, I think, in our discussion. So.
Yeah. That's just me being messy because I had that theory that I had to get out, so I had to bounce a little bit
Yeah,
between.
yeah. I just wanted to clarify that. That's, yeah.
So, day one of recording Emo, you guys show up to the studio, and it sounds like the band doesn't really know anything about these songs. All you have is a cassette demo that Ben had recorded.
Yeah.
Is this something that you guys had listened to previous to day one of recording?
Yes, we all had the demos of him just with a guitar in his living room. So they're not like 4-track demos. They're just him with a cassette player recording demos. And then, so we all had those. But I think we would run through the song once and then we would record it. And we weren't allowed to stop or anything in the song. We had to just go.
Do you think there's quite a few bands that, I know No Effects come up a lot especially, that were just preferring that rougher recording quality after the mid-90s? They would say things like punk rock today, it's too well produced. That's what spawned the Fuck the Kids and the Surfer record. Were you guys all together with them on that?
I think that always was sort of concern, and another reason to go back and forth between like precision and then just kind of just going in and do it. I think there was always that, us going, our favorite records are like Boogada and, and My Brain Hurts, where we just went in and played it live and just did it. So I think Ben just took that to the extreme. Like, well, if that's true, then I'll just have them not play together until we're in the studio. So that's how far we took it. I don't know of any band that does that. That was kind of pretty extreme, pretty out there.
Well,
luckily we had really good players like Lumley and Mass to pull it off. But yeah, I don't think we were, at the most, maybe we ran through a song twice at the most together, for the first time ever, and then we would record it.
So, is that early demo recording available anywhere?
Not that I know. I never keep cassettes. So I imagine Ben has the cassette of him doing it, but like I said, the demo is just him with a guitar, not even plugged in, just strumming on his electric guitar in his living room, probably.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, it's not like a demo. It's not like a 4-track demo or anything. It's just him pressing play on his mono cassette player and, doing that.
So, do you remember how many days this was? Was this like a 1-day, 2-day thing?
I think it was 2 days. I'm not exactly sure. I know Jesse Michaels was in town because we were working on Common Rider then too, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the same time. So we had him in. So it must have been at least 2 or 3 days, I think.
Yeah. And do you remember what your reaction was to the way that Ben wanted to record this?
I liked it a lot. I mean, I had enough albums under my belt where I wasn't like too worried, and we were putting it out ourselves, so there was no one to make happy except for us. So it was exciting, and it was actually kind of fun to watch Mass and Lumley trying to panic a bit because they just wanted it to be perfect, and yeah, I kind of enjoyed that. I had a good time during that record. I was also doing theater, so every time we got done, I'd have to hop on a bus, go across town, and do late night theater. So I was super busy then too. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, okay. So when you're recording this, are you guys listening back in the studio and thinking this sounds pretty good? Because obviously now looking back, you think it doesn't sound very good. So was it a case of this sounded good in the studio at the time?
Well, since we weren't able to record something more than once, we kind of just had what we had. That's pretty much, that was the idea. So it wasn't really much after that. We did some overdubs of guitar solos and stuff like that. Very limited amount, but it was pretty much what we got on that recording is what we got. We were all in
Well,
the same
that's
room live, we had our amps sort of separated, but we were all there like looking at each other, like almost like the Beatles? Which album is that where they all did that? One of their albums where they decided to all go back into the basics again. It kind of, a band just sort of goes through those phases, I think, where they just want to bring it back to the basics.
yeah. Do you remember what the recording studio setup was? What were you guys using back then?
I don't remember what we were using. I mean, it was a 24 track studio. We were all in one room. What was it? Iron. I'm going to look at where was that at? That was I always forget the name of that studio. Brendan Burke recorded it. He Acme recording. That's right. In Wicker Park. They had a really old board there. So it was definitely one of those archaic, ancient 24 track boards. But no, I don't remember much. It was very simple. I mean, Common Writer used the same studio because they were there at the same time. But I don't know gear talk as much. We just had separation things between our amps, and that's about it. Just one big room.
Yeah. I can imagine Ben did most of his vocals in one take as well, maybe.
Most of them, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed as well, he says in the notes, there's the evidence that I actually have the album, a physical copy. But he says in the notes that this is the best album that he's ever played on up to that point. Is he bullshitting there, or is there a part of him, do you think, that's saying, yeah, fuck, people are not really going to like it? He mentions that in the notes too.
No, I don't think he's being ironic or anything there. He was going through a lot, and probably, I don't know, trying medication. He was up and down. He was up and down a lot, like roller coaster ride, I think. And him and I had been going through some hard times too together, I think, because we were separated by distance. I was upset about not playing out, and we kind of really bonded on that record. There's some pictures of us sitting together that are some of my favorite of us through the whole 20 years of sitting together during that recording. I think we just kind of really liked that idea. Just exciting, visceral, get in there and do it. Everyone else was all panicking and we were like all calm. So it was kind of, I think he really did feel that way at the time. And his writing was very, like, we were sort of rebelling against the emo movement that saying that they were writing emotional music, and we had been doing, and other bands, of course, have been writing emotional music forever. So it didn't make any sense to us. So I think he really dug into that, like being as emotional and intimate as possible. And I think it's a great project, but ultimately I can't listen to it. I think it's almost unlistenable as a record, though.
So, since you mentioned the emo movement there, were there any standout bands? Because I know there's quite a few hardcore bands that just evolved more into that songwriting style where it's not so much the external anger anymore, it's more like the internal thing. And I know it's the mainstream that sort of coined it as emo, and everybody hated that word, of course, at the time, but was there a rejuvenation of that by good bands, not so much the pop punk sort of bands?
Well, I don't know. This is a time of Fugazi, right? So, I mean, Fugazi was a big influence on that whole movement. Because then my friend Gub, who ended up in Even a Blackout, started Gage, which was the band that influenced Jazz Freddy. So it was a big thing in Chicago, that movement of emo. And then there's, Alkaline Trio was the sort of the big one that came out of it. So I'm not quite sure what your question is, but I mean, it was all over the place, that movement. But the shallower bands would talk about, they start facing their drums and not looking at the audience and stuff like that we thought was ridiculous. So I think he just had a chip on his shoulder and said, well, I'll show you what actual emotional songs are really like. And that's kind of what we did.
Yeah, well, on this album we have the song Bark Like a Dog. Is there a story there of why it ended up on Emo and not the album Bark Like a Dog?
I don't think he had it written for Bark Like a Dog. He had it written for this album. It just happens to be using that title, though. I can't remember the story behind it, but it wasn't like already written and he saved it. It was written for Emo, the record. And that's kind of his. We did a Stooges cover, Dirt, in that same. So that was kind of his take on that sort of endless repeating, same three chords over and over and over again and going on and on. So I think pretty sure he did it just for that record. It didn't have anything to do with the album Bark Like a Dog. Like I would have listened to it if I had known we were going to be talking about this one. But ones that come to mind are Acknowledge and I think probably Regroup are probably the two that I like a lot. And I like Bark Like a Dog because I ended up doing that solo. And Ben like freaked out in the other room, going like loving it because I kind of almost destroyed my guitar just playing the solo in the studio over Bark Like a Dog. I think that's it. Either that or Dirt. I can't remember. Maybe it's Dirt because we recorded those back to back. But Bark Like a Dog we ended up doing live at our last show ever together, and I destroyed my guitar during that song. So
Yeah. I heard that story on one of the other podcasts that you did that I was doing my research for, so I wasn't going to make you retell that story. But, I actually did tell you that in our first video chat that the reason I wanted to get you on was to talk about emo. It is my fault that I didn't remind you, but I did tell you. Maybe I thought that you remembered that was the reason I wanted to get you on.
No. So I apologize for not remembering, but that was a while ago.
Yeah, I should have just reminded you about it as well. But
yeah, that's okay. But yeah, I wouldn't have been able to talk about the lyrics much anyway, but studio, yeah, I remember.
were there many tracks that didn't make it onto this album? Because I think Thank You Very Little had Dirt and some other... Is Dirt on Thank You Very Little?
Yep, it's on there.
Yeah, it's been a while since I heard it.
Yeah, there's also Tightrope is on there too, because there was a couple songs that and Anchor. 3 songs that we didn't, and You Are My Sunshine too we did there with Jesse Michaels. So there's like 4 songs that were recorded on that session that weren't on the record. Emo.
Well, you never hear anyone talking about that song. Maybe not a lot of people know about it. Like, what was the reason for connecting with Jesse?
We were putting out his Common Rider record, his band Common Rider, were on Panic Button. And Mass, Giorgini, and Lumley were also his bassist and drummer for that record. So we all did it together with the same Brendan, the same producer. I think we probably got studio time cheaper by having both bands go in there, something like that. So Jesse was just around. He was staying at my house and just sort of lived there.
So how long had Panic Button been around by that time? Like, this had to be one of the earliest releases for that label?
We started in major label debut, so 99. I mean, when we put out like Death by Television, not Death by Television, yeah, Death by Television by Lillingtons. The first one was major label debut, like I said, 98. We started in 98.
Yeah. How did you feel it was going by that point, a year in?
Really good, actually, yeah. It all kind of exploded when Mordam Records had sort of a dispute with Lookout, and they moved to a major label distribution called Red, and it kind of destroyed our ability to function as a punk label. So we started hemorrhaging money. It had a lot of those things, like we had to like buy end cases in record stores in order for them to like, where 30,000 Weasel records would immediately go out the door with Mordam. With Red, the huge company, we had to pay for them to take records, It was ridiculous. And we just got really jaded about the whole business and just sold it back to Lookout.
So were there any tracks that you maybe struggled with this recording?
Not really. No, not at all. No, I know that I originally was supposed to probably play the solo on. It's not even on the record, but the "You Are My Sunshine." But then Jesse did it. Um, there was a certain type of style of solo that Ben would write that I just wasn't very good at. So I think I had to pass on a couple on that record because we had different styles.
Yeah. Um, I'd love to get a favorite song out of you. It could be something that didn't make the album from this session, but is there a favorite track that stands out for you?
I I really love our cover of "Dirt." That's not that's not on there. I can give you my least favorite. I hate the Cranberries song. I never liked that song. Um, what's it called now?
It is.
Linger.
Yes.
Linger.
Yes.
Hated it. I was cringing the whole time he was recording the vocals on that. I hated it.
Well, what was the reason for doing that song?
I think he just really liked it. I think him and Portia may have liked that band together. His ex-wife. I think it meant a lot to him because he every once in a while would grab onto these like sort of pop bands like the Cranberries and Madonna that he just really liked. And I think he just truly really liked that song. Wasn't trying to do any kind of ironic take of it. I think he just really liked it.
Did you not have? Well, I guess you didn't have a say in what tracks made it onto the album, but did you have any creative input, or was it all Ben?
Well, I wrote all my parts. Like that's he didn't write anything for me. Like I said, I tried to do some solos that he had come up with, but I didn't do those. So, but I wrote everything that I played on that. Like that was the one cool thing is he didn't tell us what to do. Like Mass and Lumley would sneak in some like ska stuff and reggae things into there, and he kind of gave us the directive of do what we wanted to do, and so we did. So my creative input on that record is everything I played basically was not written before. So
So when the band was listening back to these, was there any talk of maybe this won't go down so well with the fans? Was there any hesitation on your part?
not for me. No, I knew it was going on. Like I said, I think Lumley and not think I know Lumley and Giorgini they hated it. We're not very comfortable, but I really dug it. I was hoping that Ben would allow Mass and Brendan to clean it up in the mix, but he didn't. So that's why it's kind of unlistenable to me. I think it just sounds the playing is great, but the recording is I can't even listen to it.
So since you bring up the mix, what do you usually like to hear in a mix? Like, what's the loudest thing that you like to have in a mix?
The loudest thing? I'm more of an equal. I'm more of a. I grew up with headphones. I'm a headphone generation, '70s, Pink Floyd. Whatever bands, the Queen. I like things being dispersed, like through left to right channels, panned. I like to hear all the instruments in different spots. So that's was always my job, kind of in the band too, to sort of play with that stuff. Um, I like the backing vocals to be separated from the main vocal, things like that. I like vocals. Well, it depends on what song it is. A lot of the times, I like vocals to sit equal with the guitars, but on some songs it needs to be louder. So it depends on the feel of the song.
Did anyone run the final mix or any test mixes by you for this one?
I was there for the mixing of it. Unlike Anthem, I was actually there for that, but we just did it so quick. It was kind of just however it sounded in recording was what we were going to do.
Well,
Whereas Common Writer, if you listen to that record, it was done basically the same way, but it was cleaned up by Mass and stuff like that. So it could have sounded more like that, but that wasn't my choice. And I probably didn't even think about it at the time. I was just giving into the idea of what we were doing, just taking it to that extreme.
Did I imagine it was Ben who chose the album cover, but was there a meaning behind this?
Just once again, kind of throwing that emo thing back into the emo movement's faces. Just you wouldn't typically see blooming flowers on the cover of a punk record, So I think it was that simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about the release of the album. Can you remember how long it took from recording to release? I imagine it was pretty quickly.
Yeah, things were moving pretty quickly then. We had our release schedule. So it was recorded in January and released in May. So that's pretty normal. That's pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah. Did you care about what the audience reception would be? Like, did you guys look into that?
I always, well, that was my job at one of my many, many jobs at Panic Button. I actually hired a couple of my theater friends to they had to go through every single magazine and get like reviews from Panic Button Records. In those days, it was all like actual paper. Then they had to go read every review. And then we would have them photocopy them, and I would read them. I would read them all, like even no matter what it was, theater or music. I was always interested in what people thought, but it never really. It didn't tell me what I was going to do next, which often it does. It tells people what they should do next. I never let it affect me that way, but I think almost more for running a record label, I was more concerned about how it was going to be received, more than an artist on the record.
So,
it did not do very well. So,
I mean, I just gotta say that, like, in defense of the album, if you get into it, I do think it's good. Like, I'm not just bullshitting. Like, I didn't bring you on here just to bullshit. Like, I do like this album, but like I say, I do forget that I like the album. And it's an album that you have to get into. You have to keep listening to it. Listen to it for a week, and it grows on me. And then I do love it. Like, I actually do love it. And I love the Cranberries cover as well. I don't know why. I don't like the Cranberries.
I mean, a lot of people do like it. I don't.
Well, I hope it hasn't been too torturous for you to go back and talk about.
No, I mean, it's nice to go back and think about this album, because it's not one that actually it is one we end up talking about quite a bit, because people just did not like it so much that it actually gets talked about. Like I said, more than Teen Punks and Heat, which is just an average record. It's just kind of average sounding.
Well,
whereas emo is kind of polarizing.
I could not tell you a single track from Teen Punks in Heat. I have it.
Yeah.
But I think I just stop at emo. There's something about Teen Punks in Heat that's just maybe the fan reception of emo kind of contributed to Ben's attitude. Like, hey, this is what you really want, like a dumb pop punk album. Is that your take on it?
I think so. We weren't really playing as a band anymore, and Ben was sort of living in his own apartment way out in the suburbs, so he just kind of wrote them quick, and we recorded them quick. Yeah, I don't really have much room in my heart for that one, really.
Would you say that was a contributing factor in you leaving the band eventually? I know you did hang on to it a little bit after that album.
Not the record. The record's never had anything to do with me leaving. I like playing. I like recording. So that never would have had anything to do with it. It was more about our relationship was kind of souring. And I wanted to play out more, and he wanted to play out less. And he started to get a little nasty about my wanting to play out. He's kind of get angry at me for pushing.
So I heard in one of the last podcasts that you did, you said, actually it might have been from about 7 years ago, you'd said that you hadn't talked to Ben since the band ended. Has anything changed in the past 7 years? Because I know you have tried to reach out to Ben. So has anything changed? Like, have you communicated?
No. I mean, I don't know the last time I tried. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I think I had something happen where I got sick or was thinking about death, and I reached out and said, I just hope we talk before one of us dies. But he never wrote back. So
Do you think you're going to continue to try? Maybe in a couple of years, are you going to reach out again?
time only tells. I don't know. Right now, I don't need to. I mean, my life is different, so I don't really need that. But uh, if he reached out, my sort of ego is saying it's his turn. You know, I've tried the last 3 or 4 times. Now it's his turn. But
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
I just got some fun shit to wrap up with, just so we don't end on such
Okay.
a downer. I just got to check my notes here to make sure. So, Screeching Weasel has a shit ton of rare tracks. There's so many of them. There's probably there's over 100. One of my all-time favorites is that song "Fuck the World." I think that's what it's called. It's that one that's "Fuck the World, I'm hanging out with you tonight." That's a cover, isn't it? Of a Queer song, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a cover or they wrote it together and they both recorded it. And I think we even recorded it with different words with a girl's name in it or something. Or there's 2 versions of us doing it, and there's the versions of Queers doing it too.
Ah, okay. So was that recorded for
Yeah.
any album and just got rejected?
I think so. I wouldn't be able to tell you what record we recorded it on for. But yeah, and then it was, where's it put on? Like on one of those,
It's on the.
was it like Bark like a
No, I think it's on one of the remasters of Wiggle.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember where we recorded that.
Okay. So that's a great song. I really think that should have made an album. But I think my favourite rare track, I don't know if it counts as a rare track, it's that song Soap Opera. Do you remember that one?
That's on Thank You Very Little too, I think, right?
No, that's on Kill the Musicians.
Oh, that's on Kill the Musicians.
Yeah.
I remember being lots of fun. Is that the one that has the reference to the classical music in it, or I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to say much about these.
It's
ones.
the Egyptian
Yeah.
instrumental.
Do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben did that. I remember sitting there while he was working it out, like the notes of that solo, and I thought it was super funny. Like I started laughing quite a bit.
I'm dying to know what year that was recorded, but you might not remember.
No, I don't. I can see him playing it, but I have no idea what year it was.
Okay. What, do you have a favorite rare track or a track that never made an album?
I really like 27 Things I Want to Do to You. I think that's the name of it. That's one of my favorites. Do you know that one?
It's on Thank You Very Little, I think.
There's 27 things I want to. Yeah. That's one of my favorite like tracks that most people don't know. It's on Thank You Very Little. I don't, and it must have been recorded during Wiggle. I think so, because Johnny Personality is on that one too. So yeah, 27 Things I Want to Do to You. Yeah, it's on Thank You Very Little. It was recorded for Wiggle, but not released.
Yeah. Is there a fun story behind that song, I Want to Be a Homosexual?
There was a battle over who was going to get that song, because Larry wanted it on My Brain Hurts, but we recorded it for this record label up in Canada. I can't remember his name right now that had us do it, but it was a label up in Canada, and we had promised it to them, and Larry tried to get us to put it on My Brain Hurts. So there's a little bit of a battle there. Like he was very upset because he loved that song. Also, it was fun to create it because Ben had the song, but then me and Vapid were like, oh, we should do this really instrumental beginning weird thing for it. So him and I wrote the beginning to Homosexual.
Yeah, I love that intro.
And then in the studio, Bruce LaBruce, I think, who was with the guy from Canada that came down to watch the recording, I think spoke over the beginning of that song for their version of it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, If someone is just getting into Screeching Weasel, what album would you recommend that they start with?
I think Boogada to me, but Boogada is the one where you sort of, I guess more as a historian, I like that record because it kind of shows where we came from and where we were going, and I think it's kind of fun that way. Like I think the record is very fun. I think it has some good melodic solos onto it, some stupid funny songs. But then if you want a solid record, I would say My Brain Hurts. Like solid from beginning to end. You could drop the needle anywhere and it's going to be a good song, I think.
Yeah, I think that might be the best note to end on. The greatest album in pop punk. I think, in fact, let me give you the award for the greatest album of pop punk.
Thank you.
Not this one, but but yeah, this has been actually so fun. I've been so nervous and excited about talking to you about this album. Like I say, I hope it hasn't been too much of a downer for you. My idea was this is going to be a unique Jughead interview because nobody would do this with you. Nobody would get you on a podcast to talk about emo, I don't think.
Yeah. I've touched on it briefly, but yeah, like I said, it was a really fun time for me in the studio with Ben.
Yeah.
And everybody. So it was nice to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to throw it out there, man, if you need me to do any more work for your podcast there, I'll do it super cheap. I need money quick these days. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any schedule right now, but I'll keep you in mind.
Yeah.
Also, if you're okay with it, I'd like to give this to my Patreon members too. So when you're done, if you don't mind, if I could throw it up for them. That's just like 20 people get to hear it, but I'll also promote your show too. So
again, this has been so fun talking to you. It's like a boyhood dream come true.
And the last time we talked, I was at work. I was in my wizard costume, I think.
Yeah. Is that going well? Are you digging it in Japan? You're like 8 hours in the future right now.
Yeah, it's going well now. Yeah. I'm actually taking on a new character job there. I can't really say what, but it's exciting again because it gets a little old after 10 years. But now I'm trying something new now. So
yeah. Well, hopefully people are going to be excited to watch this. All right. I'll catch you later, mate.
Bye.